great development too. And we were actually able to walk along some other areas that are part of this site plan too, that we weren't previously able to access. So we're going to talk about that too. So this is our third tag meeting, and thank you all for continuing to join us and for giving us all your feedback and your ideas. We're going to have a public hearing on the CSX acquisition in November. So we just wanted to put that on your radar. That will be November 9th. And then following that, we'll have another tag meeting, hopefully in December, and I'll reach out to you guys to schedule that. So I will turn it over to Kristen now to talk about the current status for lake restoration.
Sure, thanks, Tara. So here we have phase one. We've gone through that. Phase one is that piece that focuses on the lake, and that's going to have a kickoff period that is a lot sooner than what we have for the phase two, which is the daylighting piece of it with all of the construction and everything that goes into the design there. So for the lake restoration, we have the invasive species removal as well as native plants that are going to be put in along the lake as well. And then also a pilot on the lake's edge for a wetland there. And so currently our plan is to submit the permit that we need for that work to the state Department of Environmental Conservation by the end of the month. And we've also initiated the procurement process to be able to have the contractor on board to be able to start this work in the summer of 2023. So I'll hand it over to Mitchell next to take us through where we are with the design considerations.
Thanks, Kristen. Hi, everybody. So as Tara mentioned recently, because we have been able to advance through the process with or advance towards the process of acquiring the CSX property, we have now been able to get more access to that area of the project. And I think September is when the project team went down together right after we brought on our new landscape architecture team to start walking through the corridor and really taking those comments that we got from this summer at our CB8 meeting and from the PDC meeting, and start to take all those thoughts and put it into action with the designers down in the corridor and really start advancing that preliminary schematic design that we showed you all this summer. And that process is underway now. So some of those points that we looked at was looking into the access point at West 236th Street and the Riverdale Crossing property. We have had a preliminary discussion with the property owner and manager of the BJ's, and we are hopefully going to continue advancing that conversation. It was positive first call. We have, like I said, brought on Star Whitehouse, who's a great landscape architecture team, to start looking at how to make that greenway a bit more sinuous, which we heard at the CB8 meeting. People didn't want to just see a sidewalk next to an open stream channel. So we're working on really bringing their expertise in park design into this design. And we've been doing a lot of discussions with DOT, thinking about how the greenway will extend further south in the future. Hopefully, eventually reaching down to the Harlem River. May not be through the Metro North right-of-way in the short term, but that's why we're talking with them about ways to get people on bike, on foot, further east through the neighborhoods on the other side of the Deegan, maybe by an Albany Crescent connection, which we discussed with you all out in the field when we did our walkthrough in April, or looking at some of the existing overpasses. And that's some of the additional evaluation that Star Whitehouse is also going to help us consider. And then we've started some preliminary conversations with state DOT to think about how the highway noise issue can be mitigated within the project, and also continuing to discuss with DOT other projects that are not directly within the Tibbetts corridor, but improving bike and ped connections specifically along the southern side of Van Cortlandt Park to make sure that people are able to access the new greenway safely, and all those neighborhoods are better connected to the south side of the park. So lots of exciting things. And, I probably just mentioned all of this in the last slide, but I'll hit these points again. So again, Star White House, that's our landscape architecture firm that's now on the project. We're really excited to bring on their expertise. I've been talking about the West 236, and we'll continue those conversations with the property owner. Looking at and then looking at all of our connections into the park and across the Deegan with DOT to make sure that this project doesn't just become a greenway to nowhere, but really fits into the overall citywide greenway network planning. And this slide is just a little taste of some of the thinking that Star White House is going to be focusing on specifically. They presented this little grid of various topics to us at our kickoff meeting with them, just saying, we know these are things that we always bring into the projects that we work on with parks or with private park development projects. And they're going to be looking at this project through all these lenses, which will hopefully create a much more cohesive project than our early schematic showed, which was, again, just the preliminary thinking. So we're advancing the design, and we're really excited to show you all an update for that at the next tag.
Okay, great. Thanks, Mitchell, for going through the design considerations. We wanted, and like Tara and Mitchell has said, we recently went to the CSX property and we have some field observations to walk through with you all. But first, we wanted to provide an update on the property acquisition. So like Tara mentioned, coming up on November 9th, there is a public hearing on the purchase and sale agreement, or the PSA. And so we have some details on this public hearing towards the end of the presentation as well. So after the public hearing, and once the PSA is executed, there are steps that the city and CSX need to follow to get to closing. So the first step in the PSA is with CSX. So they need to contact the Surface Transportation Board, also called STB, in the federal government to file a petition for abandonment. And then next, the city will request that STB issue a notice of interim trail use. So these requests to abandon the rails and for trail use are part of the Rails to Trails process. So that next step after that is with STB, and they have up to a year to go through their own public process to grant CSX's petition for abandonment and to issue the notice of interim trail use to the city. So, and only after STB grants CSX's petition for abandonment can closing occur, and the city will not own the property until closing. So as you can see, there's some steps to get us from the PSA to the closing, but we're on track. And the next step forward is that public hearing that we have coming up in November. So for this next section, the CSX field observation. So this is from earlier in September. DEP, Parks, and the consultant design teams were able to visit the CSX property. And so we have some key takeaways from that site visit that we wanted to walk through with you all today. That includes the space being narrow, especially given the competing design interests. There are property constraints between 233rd Street and 231st that present a challenge. And the lighting and space under the overpasses was actually better than expected. And there is a section of the CSX corridor with about 18 feet of New York State DOT right-of-way between the highway barrier wall and the CSX property line. So we'll go through each of these points, and we have some photos and videos as well. So the first point here, the narrow space has competing interests. So as you can see in this photo, the building here in yellow and the wall next to the Major Deegan has a pretty narrow green area. And as part of the design, we need to fit in the channel, the greenway, and vegetation. And in certain places, we also need access points and maintenance paths. And some of the areas in the corridor are as narrow as 25 feet across. So here we have a video of the corridor. It goes pretty quick. So this is mostly just to show in this green area, we have the barrier wall and the CSX boundary. And Here we have under the overpass, and just keep in mind that the property line doesn't extend all the way across here. So next up, we'll go through the property constraints between 233rd and 231st. So there are two properties that present these challenges. They're currently at low grade, and both sites have some level of flooding today, so with existing conditions. So the first property we'll go through is a garage with low windows. So with the proposed grade change in the CSX corridor, the windows would be about the same elevation as an open channel stream, just the base flow, so during dry weather. And then the embankment for the open channel would actually be 3 feet higher than the existing window. So we'd be blocking off that window. So next we have a video here, and this is showing the side of the building next to the CSX corridor. And you can see how low the bottom windows are here. And then this is just looking out into the corridor itself. All right, and then the next property is at Naples Terrace, and it presents a challenge because of the existing low grade. So with the proposed open channel design, the stream base flow would actually be higher than the existing grade of the property, which means that the property would be in a depression and at a much lower grade than the CSX corridor. There's a lot of electrical equipment on the back of this building, and we'll go through some photos to show you all that. And there's also a large area behind the building that belongs to the private property owner, and they use it for storage and sheds as well as basement access. And so we'll also show some photos of that. But that gap between the building and the CSX property that already has existing flood issues, it really complicates our options if this property, were to be impacted because of our design. So here we have a video of the storage area and the shed behind the building at Naples Terrace. Okay. All right, and here's a photo from the site visit. To the left, you can see that the storage area is sticking out and there's some equipment inside of it. And you can see from the side here, the electrical equipment that's up on the building there. And then here we have a photo straight on of the electrical equipment. As you can see, it's pretty low to the ground. There's also a set of stairs here that lead to the basement. And currently, water can flow into the building through this low point of stairs during certain wet weather conditions. So our next observation was the good lighting and space under the overpasses. So this is just a photo that's just showing some light coming through here. And then we also have a video from under an overpass, just to show it's has a lot more light and space than we had first thought. So this is encouraging. All right, and our last major takeaway from the site visit was our need to start engaging with New York State DOT on their right-of-way. So we're working to schedule a meeting with them, hopefully by the end of the month, to kick off discussions. And so basically what we have is between 234th Street and 233rd, there's about a 17 to 18 foot wide right-of-way gap. And that's between the Deegan barrier wall and the CSX property. So we have some design options that we can consider. And based on the type of agreement that makes sense for New York State DOT and the city, we'll start thinking through with them what makes sense, and be in contact with all of you to see where we end up here. And with that, those are our major field observations. So next I'll hand it over to Tara to go through our estimated timeline and upcoming meetings.
So again, we're moving really, apologize. I just had my speaker up. So again, we're moving really quickly on this project. We're looking to go to bid for the lake component of the project in summer 2023. The daylighting design completion we're looking for next winter 2023. And then we're shooting to start construction winter 2025. There have been some developments with a consent order with DEC and our commitments to that we are really, really sticking to a very tight schedule and tight time frame. So we want to make sure that our design gets wrapped up and we're moving forward so that we can get a shovel in the ground by 2025. So this is a super, super tight time frame. The good part of that is that we will be hopefully kept on track, and we'll move this forward, this project relatively quickly. And then as we talked about before, don't forget that if anybody wants to join in on that public hearing for the property acquisition for the CSX property, that's November 9th. You'll be hearing from me again in about a month or so. I'll schedule our 4th tag meeting in December, and we'll go over what we've done with the improving and revising the conceptual design. We'll reach out again and have another tag meeting in the spring, just like we did this year, which I think worked really well. And we'll review our preliminary design, which we'll then be submitting to the PDC next summer. So it'll sort of be, you know, a similar pattern to what we did this spring. And with that said, any questions, concerns, comments?
Bob, I'm going to click the allow to talk button. Are you able to unmute and speak?
Is this question for Bob Bender?
Yeah, Bob Bender. Hey.
Hi, I for some reason I don't have any video. I don't know if everybody has no video or if it's just me.
No, I don't think we have video.
Okay, all right. I was trying to figure that out.
Sorry, Bob.
That's all right.
Yeah,
But,
our one website person is in Europe right now, so we're
right.
doing our best.
Okay. So with regard to the public hearing on November 9th, I assume that testimony can be provided ahead of time, correct?
I am not certain on that. Anybody else? Kristen, or Pinar, do you happen to know? If not, if we don't know, I can find out.
Yeah, let's follow up on that just to be certain.
You got it. I'll put in my notes.
Because obviously we have a great interest in this project, and we certainly want to be heard. I just don't know whether who's going to be available on that date. That's why I ask. I'm also curious about this DOT right-of-way issue. This seems to have come up recently. I don't recall this from previous discussions. So you're going to require DOT approval for certain portions of the greenway, is that correct?
No matter what, we can build within our property. So it's not a question of whether or not we can use state DOT's property to build any of our infrastructure. It's more for an aesthetic reason. So can we incorporate their right of way into our grading and landscaping, or should we just continue our barrier wall that's going up between the property and the major Deegan and just have this 18-foot gap? So we just have to, get in touch with them and have an understanding of what type of agreement could work for the city and work for New York State DOT. And from there, that will really guide our design decisions. But it's not an issue in terms of us not being able to put our own infrastructure through that area. It's more just how do we interact with this right-of-way space that they have for this, about a block of the property in CSX.
So yeah, so just to clarify, so the the size of the property, the width of the property that's available for the project is not any narrower now than it was before?
No, we had the survey the whole time. So it's just a question of when we actually got to the site and we saw in person oh, there is a gap between the barrier wall and where our property line is, in a way that made it feel more real than when we were just looking at, 2D paper and lines and where do all these things fit.
Mhm. And this consent order between DEC and DEP for the winter of 25. So what exactly does this require? What does the consent order require be done?
Sure. So
Yeah, I can chime
Oh.
in on that one, Kristen.
Okay.
I mean, feel free, but it's a great question. So the consent order is part of the combined sewer overflow green infrastructure consent order, which this project is going to be the largest green infrastructure project that we would like to build under
Mhm.
that consent order. And the order dictates the city to finish all of the green infrastructure required under the consent order by 2030. So that's kind of our deadline for finalize this project. That's why how we got the funding to build the project and how we would like to be cognizant about that deadline. It is a milestone decree date. With that being said, I know you all have been waiting for a long, long time for this project to happen. However, we understand, enough attention shall be given and not to rush everything. So that's why we thought if we can really kick it off in 2025 and give enough time for this design process to take, that leaves us around 4+ years to complete the project and call for the substantial completion to finalize it by 2030.
Okay, thank you. And one last question, the low-lying areas that you've identified, particularly between West 233rd and West 231st, that are susceptible to flooding now, do you have an idea at this time how you're going to deal with that problem?
So we're looking at a couple design considerations, but in terms of the engineering logistics and kind of our legal options, one of the ideas that we have on the table is to move that intake structure further up, closer to 233rd Street. So if we had that, then the stream that would be going past those properties would be enclosed in a closed conduit, and we wouldn't have to change the grade. So we wouldn't be burying that one window or putting that other property into a depression. And it would also open up our opportunities for, the parks components. You can do more with the greenway and things like that. So we haven't made any decisions yet, but that's one of, the leading options in terms of keeping the project on track.
So in other words, for that section, it would not actually be daylighted, the brook.
It would still be daylighted from the Broadway sewer. But yeah, it could be in a closed conduit.
Mhm. All right, thank you.
Yep. Okay. So next, Zach, I clicked allow to talk. I don't know if you're able to unmute now.
Yeah, I had a similar question, certainly about those low properties, and thanks so much to everyone for presenting. And it's great to be included and see the progress that is being made, and also know where some of these I don't know, turns in the river are, so to speak. I'm curious, I guess, about a couple things. One is for the DCAS meeting, what the I guess what's being weighed there and how we can support that, and how sort of formal versus substantive the question is. And then I also had a question where I thought was going to come up in the property issue was a parcel that we had talked about that seems to be used for vehicle storage and for a landscape company. But it seemed like maybe it was a demapped road. And I was curious if that that parcel has been identified, or if you've found any more information about that, because that seemed like something that could provide a new access point and also create a much wider property potentially. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Zach. So I'll start with the question you're asking about the unbuilt street between 234th and 236th. So part of bringing on Star White House is having them look at the broader circulation in the area, because, you know, one of our design considerations was, you know, building that out as a bike path. One logistical thing with that parcel is it's not directly adjacent to the CSX property. So you have the CSX property, a private parking lot, and then that unbuilt street. So as Mitchell mentioned, our main focus as of now is providing or obtaining some sort of agreement with the private property owner to allow access from 236th Street, right near that BJ's, to the CSX property, because you do have that private area there that is what's separating the unbuilt street from the CSX property. So no decisions have been made yet. It's part of Star White House's circulation considerations. I guess, Mitchell, is there anything you want to add to that one?
No, I think you hit it all, Kristen. I would just emphasize, she said it, but yeah, that unbuilt right of way still has the privately owned parking lot in between. So it was never 100, like the consideration that we could just expand the full CSX corridor in that area. Not quite ever going to be the case. There's maybe some creative ways that the two could be linked, but again, it's to be determined. Star White House is on it to look at it and help us figure out what the best options are for improving access in that area.
Thanks, Mitchell. And then Zach, for your other question about the DCAS meeting. So what we understand is it's part of a public hearing. It's part of the process for the city to be able to enter into the agreement in the purchase and sale agreement with CSX. So we do know that the public going to the hearing and supporting is, you know, a good thing, but in terms of the logistics and what that looks like, we can add that to our list of things to follow up on. I guess, Tara, Bernard, do you have anything else to add about that meeting?
I don't at the moment.
Okay. Yep.
Thanks,
So
all.
yeah, we'll follow up just with some more detail of what that will look like. All right. And then I think I'm just going to go through and click allow to talk for everybody who has their hand up, because I think it takes a minute to show you that you can unmute, but then we'll just call out who to ask their question next. So I guess, David, do you want to go ahead and ask your question?
Yes, thank you. Two questions. One, what you showed of the back of the garages between 231 and 233 and their electrical equipment out there, is that in fact their property, or is it a case of, which is what it seems like, nobody's been using this for a long time, so let's just put the equipment out there, and they're sort of taking it over by adverse possession, which could be very, very problematic. And then my other question relates to the preparation for the presentation that you're going to make at the next round of the conceptual design. I guess I'll ask that more specifically, but are you sure of whether that equipment is actually on their property, or are they just sort of hanging it out because nobody knew it was there.
Yes, so that area that we showed with the shed and the electrical equipment, that
Yes.
does belong to the private property owner that's there. So we have this gap, and so I'm just gonna click for Dahlia to be allowed to speak. So just in case she wants to add anything to this, Dahlia is with Hazen and Sawyer. But, you know, we've been looking at the design considerations, and the part of the property that includes where they store, it looks like refrigerators.
Yeah.
It seems like it's some sort of repair shop, and have that electrical equipment. All of that is on their property. It's not part of the CSX property that we're acquiring.
Okay.
Yeah, just confirming there is open space on their property and it runs across the back of the shed. That is definitely their property. We thought it was potentially an encroachment. It is not.
Okay.
Would you mind going back to that slide?
Sure.
Thank you. Thank you, David, for the question.
All right, so here we have looking at the electrical equipment and the set of stairs. And then this is probably a better view, but where we are on this path, this is technically their property. So in the CSX corridor is, you know, mostly on the other side of this tree line.
Oh,
Interesting.
It basically runs, yeah, along the edge of the tree line. Well, a little in between the tree line and the back of the shed over there.
are you at Naples there? Is the cross street Naples at that?
Yes.
Yep,
Okay.
Yeah. So
And
the
there's a
property
stairway
line.
right from the end of
there
Naples?
is. Yep, that stairway is actually the easiest way to get to the CSX property right now.
And
It's
that
pretty-
stairway is the edge of the property line for them and then kind of goes straight along the face of that stairway towards the 231st Street. So everything in between that stairway and the building, you know, the building kind of cuts back at an angle and everything in between is their private property.
That's a pretty high-tech pathway.
Lot going on.
Cardboard, cardboard.
Well, no, it looks like plywood actually, but
It's not.
and quite weathered. So my other question was the presentation you're going to make to us. What is going to be our role, particularly the community board, in developing this next go round, other than the conversations we had a few months ago? Because that was a big
Sure.
concern with us with the last go round.
Yeah, so in terms of the considerations and the input, so where we are in terms of developing the design, you know, we got through the conceptual piece of it in the spring and we went to PDC there. And so now that we are in the fall, winter, we're working on the advanced schematic conceptual design. So we're not going to PDC yet, but we wanted to have a check-in with everybody, you know, just here is what we've heard. This is how we incorporated it into the design. We've updated the conceptual design. You know, this is what we could accommodate. This is what we were limited by, and just, you know, have that check-in with you all. So it isn't just you saw the conceptual design and then we go to PDC and then you see the preliminary design and we go to PDC. So it's just a check-in, like a halfway check-in along the way. And then, you know, just to get that feedback and to also, you know, let you all know where we are in the design process. And, you know, we're also getting further along. We have Star White House on as well. You know, hopefully we can come back with something about the access points, you know, because I know that was a big topic for us in the spring. So just it's a check-in point, and, you know, we want to hear your feedback.
Will you be coming to the community board, particularly the Parks Committee, about these details? Because typically what we do is we get a presentation and then we make a resolution essentially approving or in rare case disapproving of what's been presented.
Yeah, so I know we have Mark to go to the community board in the spring before we head to PDC with the preliminary. So for the advanced schematic, I think initially we have in mind to go to the tag. But, you know, I guess Tara, what do you think in terms of where we are or
Yeah,
where
I
we will
think
be?
maybe one thing, we want to have the tag to get the first input and then we'll go take the other steps. I don't know if you have that kind of staggered schedule, Preston, but we thought like, you know, this is like more of the first feedback we get. are we on the right track? Can we keep going? And then we'll go to the community board and then the PDC.
So you will be coming directly to the community board, to the Parks Committee, and who will make a recommendation to the community board as a whole.
That's my understanding, but Mitch,
Just
correct me
a
if I'm wrong.
point of clarification, that two committees reviewed this, Environment Sanitation Committee and Parks Committee in the past, and this is Laura Salter's decision to make about which committee comes. And also the community board has a position of record as per its June resolution. So it's up to Laura because our engagement from the community board side was to two committees, but it's up to her to make that call going forward. But that would certainly be something in the schedule here. Is it? I'm sorry
Very
to
good, thank you.
interject. And I did have
I'm
a question.
on. It's
Hi-
Laura.
Hey, Laura, how you doing? Yeah,
My hand is up.
yeah, mine too. So we'll wait our turns.
I guess, Bob, do you want to go next? Or I guess,
Okay.
David, do you have any additional questions?
No. I think that Bob helped to narrow the focus on that point. Thank you.
Okay, great. Yep, Bob, take it away.
So you must feel good about being on the ground and seeing what you saw. So this is really incredible. What happened, the difference between actually going on site. So congratulations getting there. And thank you for this interim. We understand you're not near drafting or anything or rendering. So my first question is about the groundwater level and the area that you mentioned. I just wanted you to rehearse that a little bit. I do about where the water table rises to a level that's not productive and engineering wise not good for the project. And then the question to me is, how will the design deal with this high water table and the high groundwater?
Yeah,
And
so just
so
one
I'm-
point, it was overland flow. So it's only, during certain wet weather conditions, these properties are at the lowest point in the CSX corridor.
okay.
So,
So it wasn't groundwater, it was
Mm-mm.
stormwater.
mhm.
Okay. And I guess, Pinar, we are really understand that this is a GI project, and as per a GI project, it will have permeable asphalt. And that was one of the community board's conditions for approving the conceptual, was that this would be permeable asphalt. Have you started to think about extra measures? Because I'm a little concerned about a washout, given that what you found, and it's really great you found, and I completely understand the alterations and decisions you're making. But I would just put a pin in this area as almost like a GI plus trouble area where you're between that area that is a washout on stormwater. I thought it was groundwater. So I guess my last question about this is, your landscape designers kind of GI bona fides and how you're directing them to deal with this stormwater issue in this particular area so far. Do you have any
So-
thoughts on that so far?
Yeah, just to jump in. So for the piece in terms of these properties and what we are looking to do with the design and not looking to do. So, I don't have any visuals here, but basically if we were to run the open channel stream past these properties, it would put them in a depression, right? So
Yeah,
they
right.
have existing issues. They're not something that, I guess in terms of the scale, we don't really know, but obviously these properties still exist, so they don't have to abandon them, right? So, but if you have a situation where, we put a wall on our property and you're putting them into a depression, it would make that situation worse for them.
Yeah, right.
So that's one consideration that we have in terms of, our design, and as opposed to if we have that closed conduit, then we don't need to change the grading. So what's at grade currently
I
can
see.
remain, right? So their existing
see.
condition, right, would remain the same.
So first of all, would you need to incorporate extra infiltration in those places? And would the closed channel at that point be above ground? Would it be kind of what I call the bunker south of 230th? Or is it
Right.
going to be depressed? Have you thought about that yet?
Right. So these are all things that we'll go into detail with you all on
Okay.
in December. We're still
Okay.
working through those details. And I'll just follow up to say too, kind of where we are with this project is Star White House is helping us with those parks components, you know, circulation, access, how people like the look and feel of being in this space.
Yeah.
And Hazen, there are experts on the hydrology piece of this. So that's still in their court.
Okay, so going forward, particularly in this area, it'll be a partnership between engineering and landscape design. landscape
Exactly,
architecture.
right.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm a little concerned about that, but that's the landscape we inherit, so.
Yeah, so hopefully we'll come back with more details in December for you.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, Charles? Would you like to ask your question?
Let's try again. Can you hear me?
Yep, can hear you. Oh, we might have lost you.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Gotcha. Yeah. Sorry, it cut out again.
Let me. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Oh, I'm very pleased with your presentation. Very, very pleased. I would like to offer that we should add ecology to the design considerations matrix.
Oh, sure. Yep.
And then I will offer, as the chair of the City is Living Laboratory, that we could offer a sound artist and an artist to work on the building walls on the back side of those walls that face the corridor.
Okay. Yeah, great. And in terms of, you know, that process with the outreach to the private property owners, you know, we know that that's part of what we need to do to loop them into this process as well. But we're focusing now just to get, you know, the design going and knowing that we do have that consent order milestone, at least for the hydrologic piece of this. So yeah,
we would simply just parallel and you know, just call us in any way. But we understand your goals, and we will not do anything to delay you.
Sure. Yeah. So I think that's definitely, you know, part of the conversation and considerations, how we're going to go about incorporating public art into this area. And, you know, that's also a role that we have for Star White House to help guide us in that. So, you know, that'll be part of our future discussions.
And then the last thing is that I would be interesting to see how you will develop the flow between the mill pond and the CSX right of way.
The flow for the water.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah. And so that will be part of what we show in December.
Terrific. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Deborah, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, thank you. I had three things. The first one was I wanted, we had somebody reach out to the community board last spring, who was one of the property owners, Mark Lipton, who owns property between 231st and 232nd. I just wanted to make sure that you were all connected, because he had been expressed interest in selling some or part of that or giving access. And since that seems to be a place where you're having narrowness, I want to just emphasize that the property owner is amenable to discussion.
Sure. Yeah, that would be actually, if you don't mind passing that info along to us. We had heard that they reached out to the council member's office.
I had sent you that email too, Tara.
Yeah, and I think I also
all the contact information, I forwarded that in June.
Oh, great. Okay.
Okay, great.
We'll send it again.
Sure.
Can we show what that property is being referred to?
Is it this area with the Naples Terrace with the stairs from the?
He's specifically between 231st and 232nd, the parking garage and the two paint stores there and the back.
Oh, the parking garage. Okay,
Yeah.
so yeah, that's oh, sorry, I was going the wrong direction with the presentation. That's the building with the low windows.
Right,
Hmm.
that building.
It's
Okay.
directly to the north of the stairway of Naples.
Yes,
Right.
right there. Oh, you know, we have a map. Yep. So this is the garage with the low windows, and here we have Naples Terrace.
Yeah, so those property owners, no surprise to anyone, have experienced a lot of flooding. And so they're open to discussion about options, so.
I think
Um,
that's the Cap One Bank building.
sorry, what?
I think that's the Cap One Bank building that's being converted into the laundromat, et cetera.
Yeah, well, when we were out there, it was a parking garage.
The garage with the low windows is an enterprise like parking.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And our understanding is the building, the Naples Terrace right of way, like, well, it's not right of way, but that driveway is owned by the same people who own the building with the equipment.
Okay, interesting. Well, so then I can't speak for him, but I would suggest reaching out to him.
Yeah, and we've been we're able to make contact with that owner.
And then I wanted to just ask about connections. If you had gotten any further in terms of establishing specifically where the access points will be for the greenway?
Yep. So that's part of what White House is working on. You know, they're looking at the whole area and just seeing the circulation of how people get on the subway, use the buses, walk, bike, all of that, and incorporating that to help us in terms of determining the access points and proceeding with that part of the design.
Okay.
Yep.
And
So that
then-
will be part of what we go through in December as well.
Okay, so they'll present in December. And then finally, percent for art. I know some of these large projects are eligible for percent for art money. And so I wanted to just find out, like, what we want to make sure that the process is transparent, right? That as artists are picked and 8 organizations. So do you know if this project is eligible for percent for art, and kind of what's the normal process for something large like this? Because we want to make sure that the arts are integrated into all of this so that it's really a showpiece.
Right, absolutely. And I will say for a large project like this, it kind of started in a non-traditional way. Usually you would put that percent for arts right in the contract in the beginning. And, and a big driver of this, like Pinar was saying, is this project is part of our long-term control plan for the Harlem River. So when, this project has blossomed and is on a fast track in a way that is great in terms of getting big infrastructure projects in. But it's also, a little bit burdened by what we had to do to get it on that fast track. So I know we have heard you all bring this up to us in the spring, and we were thinking in terms of the Parks Department working through alternative options that they have to incorporate art in this area. But unfortunately for the percent for arts, it seems like this project won't be able to be incorporated into that program.
Because it seems disappointing to me that the largest capital project of this entire consent order would have no art whatsoever, and particularly in the Bronx, and particularly in an environmental justice zone.
Of course, yep, and that's why we're looking for alternatives. We're not going to just leave it bare, but just in terms of that specific program.
Right. I mean, yeah, I'm just talking about money. Asking for the Parks Department to, when there's probably more money available through percent for art.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I guess, Mitchell, do you have anything that you want to add?
No, I again, just reiterate what Kristen said. She got everything right. We want to put art in this corridor, part of the park. Unfortunately, because DEP already had standing retainer contract for this type of work, that percent for art wasn't automatically built into the contract. Like if it was a parks project that we created fresh out of nowhere. But we are 100% looking into what our options are and intend to include art in this project.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Karen?
Yeah, hi.
Hey.
So much for this presentation. We didn't expect to hear from you so soon.
Mhm.
I put a comment in the Q&A, which is the report of the notice of the hearing. It seems like it's going to be online, that there's a conference call number and an access code. So people can comment, and I think you can put in comments ahead of time. You have to read the notice. I could send it out, send you a copy of it, but it's sitting in the Q&A. I don't know if other people can see that. And then I'm particularly interested in what's going on in the park south of the Weirs. There's a phase that's missing.
Yes, so
My head is missing a phase here.
no, it's still part of phase 2. It is. It's
Oh.
just the piece that, you know, was a little bit more straightforward than the CSX corridor. So that will be included in when we go through the advanced design schematic with you all in December.
We haven't seen any real, I mean, we walked it, but we didn't really see what's going to happen.
Yep. So that section, it was included in, you know, our certainly in our community board and PDC submittal. I believe it was also included in the tag meeting that we had in the spring, but I know the major focus that we had there was the access points at the time to the CSX
Right.
corridor. So certainly hear you that we spend a lot of time on CSX, but we are still working within the park itself. That, as Mitchell mentioned, Star White House is looking at the circulation and that portion of the design as well. So
I mean, we're creating a wetland, and we're also continuing the Putnam Trail, a greenway. And so some of those particulars would be of great interest to us.
yeah, absolutely. In December, we'll have that for you.
And just so you know, we did have a SWIP on the stormwater pollution prevention plan on the other section of the Putnam Greenway. And we would expect, I mean, I don't think we'd have to really do the whole thing by piece, but we expect the same kind of a understanding of design.
Okay, yeah, and certainly once it gets to the construction phase, we'll have all of that, you know, follow the standard protocol and everything.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Camila, do you want to go next?
Yes, thank you so much. So I have 5 points, but I will try to make them short. So if you could help me make the answers short too, you know. First, let me say hello to Pinar. Pinar, it just happens to be that this year I'm the chair of ENS in CB8, so it's great to see that you guys come back to us with so much progress actually, and with so much adaptation from the preliminary presentation, which makes us very hopeful that the points that were made, that they reached you, and it's wonderful. So let me get into my points. Number one, it's a point I previously raised, which to me, I tend to work in economic development, is the issue of cleaning and maintenance, and basically who will empty the trash cans. This is my, honestly, right now, one of my biggest concerns with this project, because it's so enclosed, and the moment the trash doesn't get picked up in time, you know, it tends to kind of ruin the whole purpose, attract rodents, etc., 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 negative social things. So I know maybe it's still early for the question, but if you can give me a quick idea, basically you tend to say that parks will manage this area as a park, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Excellent, good. Number two, I raised it also before, but before I believe you didn't have sort of full physical access to the site of the issue of the existing trees. From my own kind of pictures between the fence, chain link, you know, gates, I always saw like large trees, and I'm asking if there is an existing tree survey, or however it's called, and also if or if you basically intend to clear and then design, because as you can tell, some trees are fair, even from the pictures that you shown, are fairly, you know, wide, big trees.
I believe that there is a tree survey that's already done, and there will be additional ones done in the CSX corridor if those haven't been done yet. The design is still ongoing, so we're not sure exactly which trees will remain and which trees will go, but there's always a goal of the Parks Department to remove as few trees as possible in a project. But yes, some will be cleared, and we'll try to save as many as possible, because it's also an additional expense to the project for each tree that's removed.
Right, exactly. And some are fairly close to the walls, actually, to the walls of the commercial properties. Third point, that exact garage that you showed, I shared this before also. I was working in that area for the whole year 2018. And honestly, there was like a 3-day rain in October, a rain with no name, just the usual rain. And I have tremendous pictures of that garage with water all the way sort of to my chest. I'm a short person, but it was still all the way up to my chest. That is clearly sort of a floodable area that will remain so. So I'm a little bit concerned because, again, this is a marshland, and to some extent we have to we have to let the marshland be a marshland, but also protect this property. I'm a little bit concerned hearing the answer that you gave in the sense of kind of containing the flow coming from the lake. I don't think this has anything to do to a plus or a minus. I mean, that area will remain floodable. So I don't know. I'm just putting it out there. You might need to like lower the grade or whatever, but just to tell you again, regular October rains flood that garage to a very significant extent. I'm happy to email you the pictures. Number 4, I don't know if you know or not, but at the CB8, a large building project has been brought up as 160 Van Cortlandt Park South is a project that will create 340 units on a lot that's currently vacant. It's actually occupied by the Church of Visitation and smaller DSN school. And again, 340 units will be built without leaving a lot of empty space. So with the entrance immediately across from the CSX side. So I was just we are trying to investigate what the Uniform Stormwater Rule would kind of imply as far as helping us advocate for a different design. But I'm just asking right now if you guys are aware of this project and if you have thoughts.
Sure, yeah. So thanks for flagging that project that's going in near 239th Street. The council member had flagged that for us over the summer. And so, we got that to our group that's looking at the environmental assessment of the project and all of that. So we're certainly including that in part of our analyses. And, what we've determined so far is that property, it'd be adjacent to our property, so it wouldn't directly impact the project per se, but, we'll definitely keep that in mind. And, with an understanding too, that with that development, you could have more users in that space. Yeah,
exactly. Notably, 340 individual apartment units that are not existing right now, right? So just to think about, maybe you have averages or whatever, how much that would add to the actual water discharge into the main under Broadway. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And my number 5 point is, if you still consider, we raised some concern the previous time whether the width, especially in the most limiting portions of the property, allows both a bike path and a pedestrian path. Personally, I do not believe that, but I'm just asking whether further thinking have been put into this, and you still kind of aim towards like a shared use bike and pedestrian, or just one of them.
So Mitchell, do you want to speak to that for the Greenway?
Sure. I think this is something that we'll have more to say on in December once Star White House has helped us advance this schematic. In general, it's pretty tight throughout the corridor with the water there as well. So more than likely, the majority of the corridor is going to be shared, but potentially striped in a way that it's clear that, bikes are on this side and pedestrians are on this side.
So separated, like physically separated.
No, I'm saying striped.
Striped.
Most likely, but we
uh-huh.
will have more definitive answer on this in December after our designers have had a chance to rework things with the knowledge that we've gained, being able to get down into the site and advance the preliminary design we showed earlier.
Okay, cool. Okay, and then finally, just to ask you again, if you would be so kind, it's so wonderful to have these presentations online. Thanks for having that sort of public website of the project. Please post them there. And just to say, if you want to come with even sort of just to have like a preliminary check or just to share with the ENS committee of CB8, which most of the speakers so far are on, you are absolutely welcome. Just let us know and we will make like a special session for you guys. So thanks
Wonderful.
again.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Parks as well.
Great. Sounds good. Thanks. I get Chauncey, do you want to go ahead?
Yes, good evening, Chauncey, Harlem River Working Group. Thanks for the presentation. A couple of my questions were already asked. So I do think it'd be great to follow up with that that landowner, property owner, to see if there's a possibility of doing something just in terms of creating additional access to it. I guess around obviously my concerns are around the greenway path and access points both east and west. So I'm happy to hear about Star White House and hope that there'll be some public meetings with Star White House, some visioning sessions if possible, just because I've worked with them in the past doing public visioning sessions. I think they do a great job. I think the key part about this project is Broadway is, we need east-west entrance points onto this greenway space. And then I guess my concern with that property, if we are not able to get it, is just the impact of how that could, narrow the greenway and ideally we don't need to put the Tibbetts, creek end the daylighting as quickly as possible. So as long as the longer time that we can have it above ground, the better for the overall well-being of the project and the look. So yeah. So I think that's it. I think all the other questions I think have been answered. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Yep, and definitely part of the east-west entrance points, that's something that Star White House is looking into. So, and we'll have that advanced schematic design meeting in December where we can go through all of that. I think, did I miss anybody who had their hand raised?
Me, Laura, CBA.
Hey, Laura. Hi.
I'm sorry, I thought my hand was raised. May I speak?
Absolutely.
Oh, okay. This has been an incredible presentation and you've made real progress. I just want to circle back to the board approved the conceptual design back in June for the PDC. Our resolution stated that we will pass a new resolution for the preliminary design. And I'm making my pitch that you come back to Community Board 8. Would it be possible in March or April, early in the spring, so that we have time to develop that resolution and, pass it in plenty of time for your PDC hearing, the next one, but preliminary. I'm just throwing that out, yeah.
I know we have like a ballpark date. I think it might be in May. Dahlia, do you have the schedule pulled up that you could check?
Give me a second, sorry.
Sure. Yeah. So Laura, we'll let you know, but totally understand
even
that.
April, just as early as possible. If not March, April, because to pull our piece together.
Right. And certainly part of it on our end, we have it's this process where we start internally and then we take it up the ranks. And by the time we bring it to you all, we want to make sure that what we're showing you is what we submit to PDC.
Right, and we have the same thing with our committee, our calendar with our committees
Mhm.
meeting and then going to the full board, you know what I mean? So I just want to make sure I'm throwing that out there and, you know, this has been incredible progress, as I said, and I did have questions, but they have been addressed. So
Oh, great.
thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much. So does anybody else want to unmute? Just feel free to raise your hand, or if you are unmuted, feel free to.
I'm sorry, it's Camelia. Just
Hey.
one quick question. I was wondering how to say again, for all these property owners that are immediately adjacent and that suffer floodings, all these businesses. So like, will you, I don't know how to say, like, will you reinforce those walls? Will you build a new wall? Will they stop being flooded basically on, on the west side?
I guess, Dahlia, do you want to take that one?
Well, I'll note that right now there's no drainage in that corridor. And so I think part of the problem is right now the water goes into the, basically at that Naples Terrace area is where that water for the whole CSX corridor ends up. And so by adding in the stream, that is going to, there is, it's not going to be quite the same condition, but we are evaluating it further, and that's something that we will be discussing, I think, at the future meeting.
I put this in my question and answer, but I also just say if we could go back to the previous format where we can see the community and the presenters, I think it just makes it a much more fulfilling and complete process.
Yeah, noted.
I agree. I agree. This is really
I agree
hard.
too. Mhm.
I think this is a webinar, that's why.
Yeah, we have some Zoom options for how we can set it up. So yeah, we'll note that for sure.
We'll expect you to call back to your tech person
on
from
the right.
vacation next time.
Yep. Sorry. But yeah, and I know there's some questions in the Q&A. Do we want to go through them, or do you want to, if you put a question in, do you want to just, let me just find everyone who is in there, I think, or maybe Chris left already. But he had a question: what are the impediments to lowering the stream base flow profile to address concerns about flooding riparian properties? I guess, Dahlia, do you want to talk about the engineering, the hydrology there?
Sorry, could you repeat that question?
I was asking about the impediments to lowering the stream base flow profile to address the concerns about flooding riparian properties.
Yeah, so the problem is that we still need to connect into the existing outfall at the regulator where it connects to the Harlem River. So we're very limited in how we can't really lower the hydraulic profile and still make that connection work because of we're stuck at the tail end on what that existing elevation is, and so we have to work with the limitations based on that, and then we're also limited in terms of once we get into the Metro North property, we have a pretty limited corridor to fit the pipe in. So those are the kind of the hydraulic constraints that are driving some of the issues.
Thanks, Dahlia. And then Chauncey, I see here too that you're asking about if the building is in code. It seems too close to the CSX property. So
Yeah, I agree.
yeah, these are things we've been talking with the lawyers about. And so it doesn't really seem, in terms of if we were to take a hard stance legally, we'd be opening ourselves up to a lawsuit. And, you know, our big goal with this project is to have the hydrology piece in place by that CSO consent order milestone that we have to hit for construction. So we're just balancing in terms of opening up potential litigation and all of that, and what design benefits we could get from it. So this is all something that, you know, we're working on and looking into. But from what we showed the lawyers initially, they didn't seem ready to pounce on any of these issues. And we're just asking if there was a design workaround, which, maybe where we end up. In terms of the presentation being available to the public, yep, we'll be able to post that on the Tibbetts website. Thanks, Karen, for including the CSX hearing info. And Chauncey, yep, heard you about the format. We'll work on that for next time. And thank you, Danielle. That's great. So I guess any questions or closing remarks?
Just to reiterate again, open invite from ENS. Maybe we can do a joint ENS and parks in spring as soon as you feel ready for some direct feedback, because before being back to the design commission, we are here, just reach out.
Perfect, thank you.
And maybe get it to us a week before so we can look at it. So we'll have good questions for you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Well, thanks everyone for a great meeting. Appreciate it. And we'll be in touch about December, and hopefully we'll see you all at the DCAS public hearing, and we'll follow up with some details on that as well, as much as we can. But
Thank
okay.
you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Take
Thank
care.
you, everyone.
Thank
Have
you.
a great night.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.